Hello, family. My name is James Trice, and I'm the creator of a podcast called YANA, or You Are Not Alone. You Are Not Alone is a podcast for Black men. It is more than just a podcast. It's a lifeline and a brotherhood. We're here to create a supportive, judgment-free space where Black men can have real, open conversations about what truly matters to us, from family and relationships to community, sports, culture, politics, faith, sex, race, education, and the challenges of everyday life. We dive deep into it all. Whether you're looking for advice, motivation, prayer, or just a comfort of knowing you're not walking this journey alone. YANA is here for you. This is your space to connect, grow, and be heard, because none of us are meant to do life alone. Look for new episodes weekly wherever you get your podcasts. And look for me on Instagram at jbtrice123. Welcome to YANA. Grace and peace, everyone. James Trice here again for another episode of YANA. You are not alone. This is a space for Black men to express ourselves on issues that are important to us. It's a space for us to feel understood and seen and heard. And it's a space where we realize that we do not walk this journey of life alone, because none of us are meant to do life alone. So don't even try it. Grace and peace to you again for joining us. In today's episode, we have none other than Elder Bill English. Wow. And it's an honor to have him on this episode, and I'm excited about the conversation that we're going to have. And I'll ask that you will strap in, because you are going to learn a lot from this conversation, and so am I. And so I want to welcome you to the show again. So, Mr. English, Elder English, please introduce yourself and tell the audience what you want them to know about you.
Well, my name is William English. My preference is to be called Bill English. I grew up in an all-Black town, the first all-Black incorporated city in America, a place called Brooklyn, Illinois, which is just south of East St. Louis and north of Madison, and right across the river from, you could almost throw a rock across the river at some spots in my hometown. And other parts, of course, you could swim across it. You couldn't swim across it, it was that wide. So it was wide and narrow. What happened that slaves, Missouri was a slave state, and Illinois was a free state. So slaves would escape and come across, and they set up this little township on the Illinois side where it was free, armed themselves. But anyway, we had a village. I was raised with the all-Black high school. Everybody was Black. The commerce was Black. And East St. Louis was a wide open town because the mob ran East St. Louis. And so gambling and everything, and nightclubs are open all the night. They never closed. So East St. Louis, Missouri was such an uptight place at 12 o'clock, you couldn't buy a drink. So East St. Louis and Brooklyn, all Black town, got a whole lot of play and money from the Missouri side. And I said all that to say that that's the background by which I grew up. And it helped inform who I am today. But very segregated. There was town on each side of my town. On the north side was Belleville, Illinois, where Jimmy Collins came from, the famous tennis player. And no Negroes allowed after 6 p.m. On the south side was Granite City, where they had all the steel mills. And there was no Negroes allowed after 6 p.m. However, if you worked in the steel mill, you got a pass. If you worked as a domestic, You got to pass so that you can come and go to work. But you couldn't be, otherwise you couldn't be caught in that town.
Hmm.
So growing up in that created an environment for me so that when I came to Minnesota after the Korean War, which I served in, and then school, getting an education through the GI Bill, and then coming to Minnesota to talk to grad school, go to grad school. That's how I ended up here. I came in September, August of late August of '59 to talk my
Mm.
way into grad school, because that's exactly what I had to do, to talk my way in, because I hadn't applied. But thank goodness I got accepted, and then as all hell broke loose. My wife got pregnant, couldn't work, had to be flat on her back. And without her working, I had to get a job. So I was the first black salesman ever hired by 3M. Didn't know it at the time. So I was the first black James so many times in my early career here in the '59s and '60s. We didn't do no hugging then. The first time I saw a black man downtown, I wanted to hug him. And we didn't hug in them days. I ran where the black people are. Anyway, I said all this to give you a little bit of background about where I came from and why I am here and why I do what I do. I was a Korean vet, made everything by the law, did what white people said you should do. And then I'm seeing myself, after I came back from Korea, I tell people I wish I had the courage of Muhammad Ali. But I
Mm.
didn't, I was so dumb. I didn't know there was something called a conscientious objector. I didn't know about it. They didn't tell us about it in them days. I was drafted, but I wouldn't have went into the war. I didn't like, there was every day I was in the military, I hated it. Every day I was in Korea, I hated it because I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to fight.
Mm.
I wish I'd have had the courage that he had. But you don't think it was nothing that he came along at a different time, of course, when people were a lot more conscious about it. And then they didn't even call it a war, they called it a conflict. And what I saw them do to black soldiers, the dues for 24th Infantry Division, which anybody interested, read a book by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who wrote a book about the Deuce for how they were mistreated in Korea. First one there, no winter gear, have a lot of ammo, and they were fighting the Gooks and the Chinese at the same time.
Mm.
And that was rough. So anyway, that informed who I am today. I spent 30 years in the corporate world, 17 as a vice president for a company called Control Data, where I put plants in inner city areas around the country, including Minneapolis, St. Paul, two plants, um, Hawthorne, California, which is the next to Compton, um, Oklahoma City, um, even a rural white town called Campton, Kentucky, and Washington D.C. Put a plant there, which hired people and taught them how to build sophisticated pieces of machinery, electronics, computers, supercomputers, because Control Data focused on supercomputers for engineers and scientists. They didn't compete with IBM in business computing. And anyway, that was the best thing that happened to me. And I got recruited by the Urban League in St. Paul, a guy by the name of Larry Boehm. Said, this computer company is calling me, Bill. Computer company. Yeah, and they want the guy they described they want is you. You got a social work background and a business act background. That's what they want. And they want them to come in and change the way they operate in terms of affirmative action. And I wrote the world's first affirmative action program. I still have it, long before it was required.
Wow. What year was this?
This was in 1960.
Hmm.
1960. And it wasn't required, but I knew it was coming. I predicted that women would win the GE suit, that pregnancy was not something that you could fire them for. Pregnancy was only a temporary disability, and they should be given I knew when that case went before the Supreme Court. This is after Roe v. Wade. Now, remember that there
Hmm.
was not going to be any chance that they could have to say a woman can take, you know, 5 or 6 weeks off for maternity leave. And
Hmm.
they sued and they lost the suit. GE sued, and I said, GE is going to lose that suit. So let's get started ahead of time. Let's
Hmm.
go ahead and say pregnancy, you get 1 month off and you can save your vacation time. You can
Hmm.
save your vacation time and you could take 2 months off. So whatever you want to save your vacation time, whatever you have, plus you would get 1 month off from the company. That was revolutionary in them days. Nobody was
Hmm.
doing that. So those were the things that I think helped me grow into leaving a staid, old-fashioned company like 3M and going to a progressive company who thought about doing things the right way, like Control Data, was just God's blessing to me. I wasn't looking for a job. I was happy at 3M. I was making 15 grand a year, man, and had a company car. That was pretty
Hmm.
good. Had a salesman too, that's every day. So it was it was a good job in them days.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
But when I got a chance to go, at first I told Control Data no because I was scared. A computer company, I don't know where they're going to go. In any event, they became a $4 billion company with 40,000 employees worldwide, and one of the top companies in America. And so, at least the chairman of the board and others say they would not have done that without my contributions. So
Hmm.
I feel like I can speak the business acumen because I'm good at it. I speak to, I'm as comfortable in the pool hall as I am in the White House
Hmm.
because I can talk to anybody. And that's a skill that I bring a gift. I'm known to be straightforward. That's how you know me. Tell it the way
Hmm.
it is. I don't pussyfoot around. I try not to be obnoxious and insult people. That's not what I want to do. But I will never speak an untruth to power. I'm unbought. I'm unbiased, and I am committed to American descendants of slavery.
Hmm. Wow. Let me ask this first question then. What brought you to Minnesota? What made you want to come to Minnesota as opposed to going back to Illinois, Brooklyn, Illinois, and your hometown?
Gisela Kanapka was a German woman who was a professor, the head of the Center for Youth Development at the University of Minnesota. She had been, she had written a book on youth development, and I read it, and I was just fascinated by it with my degree in sociology. And so I really wanted to study under her. She was a Jewish woman who had came from Germany right after World War II. If she hadn't been a woman and a Jew, she should have been head of the School of Social Work at the University of Minnesota. And I've since told Bob Brunix, but Bob knew who was the old former president, and Bob and I are quite close. He knew Geisler, and he said, "You're right, Bill." I said, Easter, if she don't be a woman and a Jew, she would have been head of the School of Social Work. I said, in them days, no way John Kidna or any other male was going to hire a woman to be dean of a social work program. Women deans didn't exist much in in the early days that I was there.
Hmm.
And most of the presidents of most of the major colleges were all Jewish.
Hmm.
I mean, look who walked with King, who marched with him. Presidents of universities and great religious leaders. And most of those presidents of major universities were Jewish. So my point is, and I said all that to say again, this divide and conquer chap that's going on. Look, I know there are no perfect people. I know there should be a two-state solution. Um, and I know that the Palestinians had rights that were taken away from them by the world. And they gave them Palestine. And then they created a state for the Palestinians, but the Jews have never accepted it. So they don't want a two-state solution after that's what Jimmy Carter negotiated. So now, what do we got now? You got a president want to get rid of the Jews? Want to get rid? He made it clear that we come from shit old companies. That's his language, not mine. And
Countries,
that,
right?
and he wanted to get more Norwegians and Swedes here. And shut off he's already stopped half of the people from coming from Africa right now in immigration control. You can apply for asylum, but you can't get into the country.
Right. So let me just stop for a second before we go down that avenue, and I think we may go down there, but I do want you to answer why did that make you come to Minneapolis or Minnesota? Yeah, Minneapolis, Minnesota, the Jewish woman from uh, Germany, her
I wanted
book.
to study under her.
Why you did? Okay.
Yeah.
Did you get the opportunity to do that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And what did you learn from her?
Well, I learned that one of the things that youth are a lot smarter that we think they are. I learned that you can start teaching a baby when they're in the womb.
Hmm.
I learned that brain development occurs among youth. Most men's brain don't fully develop till close to 24, 25, where most women are fully developed brains at 17 and 18. So I learned a lot from her about how to organize youth around learning how to negotiate their differences as opposed to fighting,
Hmm.
and learning how to engage in not allowing yourself to look down on someone else because they may be a little poorer than you, but to look at how blessed you are to be where you are and what can you do to help them get better. So
Hmm.
those were the kinds of things that she taught us to teach other people who got involved in social work how to look and said the main goal of a social worker is to work themselves out of a job.
Hmm.
People do not understand that. They think they're lifetime jobs. The idea is to work people so they become self-efficient. If they become self-efficient, self-sufficient, they don't need you. So you help them become stand on their own, not to carry them along all the time. So people got it all twisted. When you people talk about, well, I got my MSW, well, great. You got an MSW. Then you need to be trying to work yourself out of a job. How
Hmm.
can you help these people? And you can't do it without advocacy. You can't do it without advocacy. This country is celebrating its 250th anniversary um, as since the revolutionary period. The first man to die in the American Revolution was a black man, Crispus Attucks, in the streets of Boston. That's well known, except white people don't know it. We know it. Okay. Um, so we fought in every war they had. And
Hmm.
so, James, where I'm standing with brothers that will be listening to this podcast and someone was joining us, let's do what our forefathers did. You know, it took a man named Walter White who looked white but was black to start the NAACP.
Hmm.
It took Martin Luther King, a young preacher, to start the movement in Selma, later to change the civil rights world. It took those kind of people, and they weren't necessarily there were women with them, and they didn't get the recognition. But hell, this country didn't let white women vote. We helped them get suffrage,
Hmm.
okay? And let's not think that white women didn't help us.
Hmm.
Roosevelt, Eleanor Roosevelt was the one that told Franklin, you need to make sure you do something about the way black people are being treated. And
Mm.
he started a program that was more to try to find opportunities. And he created the CC camps so that he could go into urban communities and hire guys, young black men, to go out into the woods and get paid and do, I guess environmental work, for lack of
Hmm.
a better term.
Hmm. Hmm.
Logging, cutting down trees, cleaning parks and rivers, that sort of thing, to put people to work after the Depression. And he targeted black people. He created the Civil Rights Commission, which was very unusual in those days.
Right.
So we stand on those shoulders, and so we have to be absolutely sure that we collaborate with each other. We don't have to always get caught up on each other's personality. You
Right.
know, I don't, I don't, I don't have to love you to socialize with you, to have a meeting with you and agree to work with you.
Right.
Okay, but we are all too often we allow personalities to get away. Well, I don't like so and so. Well, maybe so and so don't like you, but that don't mean y'all can't work together.
Right. Right.
Okay, just
Let
be
me ask this.
respectful of each other.
Right. And Mr. Iglesias, let me ask this question of you too. You talked about wanting to learn, and you learned a lot from this Jewish woman from Russia, and then you said something earlier that your focus is on African descendants of slavery, right? How has what you learned impacted your work to address the issues affecting African descendants of slavery? What have you done? What work have you done to do that? And how has what you learned from this Jewish Russian woman informed that?
My wife, she was from Germany.
Germany, I
Not
apologize.
that,
Yes.
well, she wasn't all the place that I learned from. No.
Okay.
I mean, I've been influenced by my mother. I told
Hmm.
you I was influenced growing up in an all black town. All of those people built to build English. What I learned from her was how to, from an academician standpoint, from an academic standpoint, how to translate that and write that into theoretical theories and programs that addresses those issues. How to understand that brain development contributes a lot to behavior, and how
Hmm.
don't um, you reject bad behavior and not the person.
Hmm.
Those are the kinds of things that I learned from her that helped me get along. Like I said, I reject bad behavior by brothers and sisters in this town, but I don't reject them as people. I don't judge them. I reject their behavior. I mean, hell, ain't no secret that's been known. Keith Ellison and I once got in a fist fight. Al Flowers and I got in a fist fight, but we became friends and associates because I was kind of, I'm fresh. I'm out of, I'm a Vietnam vet. And I'm East St. Louis. You don't put your hands on me. You don't get
Especially
to.
from East St. Louis, man.
You know that's right. So I
Right,
said to
right.
myself, I definitely don't want to create a problem with anybody. After Million Man March, I made a march and I went. I would never lay my hands on a brother except to defend myself.
Mm.
But Keith got into a little tussle over nothing, and he apologized, and we went on. Al Flowers and I almost came to blow a couple of times, but it is. Sometimes they thought because I was an older guy, that some of the young people could take advantage of me. They don't know how to fight. I told them, I cut long, deep, and frequently.
So talk about your work though, because you've done a lot of work in the Twin Cities, Minnesota, period, to address the issues of we as descendants of the institution of slavery, descendants of.
The things that I have done, and I've been done not alone. I did a lot of work. When I first got here, got involved with Josie Johnson and Stan King and people like that who were starting something called the Negro Voters League.
Hmm.
And I wanted to get involved in things coming from Korea and determined to try to be a better life and coming to Minnesota where I didn't have to run in such rigid segregation, though it was segregated enough. But anyway, I came here and I started working with those people, and that inspired me to get involved as the civil rights movement was starting to get really heated up. I started to pay a lot more attention to this was something I had to be involved in. So the dashiki and the afros, all that came out, Black Power, all that came out, and I began to understand. And I started reading tremendously. I read the Wretched of the Earth by Frantz
Mm.
Fanon,
Frantz
and that
Fanon, yes.
and then that helped me come to understand from a philosophical standpoint a view of what's going on in the world in terms of race. I've read James Baldwin, The Fire Next Time, and that
Mm.
set me afire. I mean, that set me afire. I
It's a
read the
powerful book.
capitalist. I read the Capitalist Manifesto to
Mm.
see how capitalism impacted race
Hmm.
and and the economy, and
Hmm.
found out that's one of the reasons I started looking for a corporate job.
Hmm.
Because money, they were running everything, man,
Hmm.
and they
Hmm.
still are.
Yeah. And when you say
So if you
they,
don't know how they
well, this be
operate,
this be this be specific. So when you say they, who are the they?
I mean the corporate giants, the Elon Musk of the world, the the head of CBS, the whatever his name is, um, the head of Amazon, um, Bill Gates.
Hmm.
These are the people that are the billionaire class are now have way too much power, and they exercise that power to the point where they buy the Supreme Court, they buy it, and we laugh at it. The president made $1.2 trillion in 1 year from being president. I mean, $1.2 billion,
Mm.
and 1 year as being president. $1.2 billion in 1 year, and he's still making money. He's still cutting deals, and
Right.
and and we paying more for gas and oil and food and rent and everything else, and he's giving the big bold tax break to the rich. If we don't get out and organize our people to vote, that's it. And I'm sorry, you got to ask. I got to ask my question of every one of our so-called black fraternities and sororities and churches and other membership organizations. If we don't fund our own get out the vote, how the hell do you ask white people to fund it?
Mm.
They know that if we get the vote out, they win. We typically pick winners if we can get our people out to vote. And they just need to be inspired. And we
So
inspire
let me
them by
ask.
making them.
Right. So considering that, and considering if I look as I look at the time that we have left over, considering the present political climate and what you've said, what are you most concerned about now in this present political climate with regard to black men and black people? And what do you think we need to do to address that concern or to even solve the problem?
Let me say this. We're not going to cure racism and white supremacy in a week in an election. But what's most important is that we start the journey by throwing the rascals out. I call your attention to the preamble to the Constitution. He said, we hold these truths to be self evident that all men are created equal. And it also paraphrases it when government becomes oppressive, it is the responsibility of the governed to overthrow the government. So it is our responsibility that's called for. So we got to throw the rascals out. The rascals who would create a big, beautiful, bold bill and give all the money to the billionaires. Strip that power away from them. Okay, read the Capitalist Manifesto and figure out how to make capitalism work for everybody. In the meantime, throw the Supreme Court out, make them retire at the same age every federal judge, add more to the bench, and then make sure they have the same code of ethics as every other federal judge. To stop Citizen versus United and federally fund all elections. That takes the power away from the money boys.
Hmm.
Speech, money is not speech. Money is not speech.
Hmm.
That Supreme Court said money is speech. It says all men are created equal. All men should have the right to speak. Doesn't say nothing about money should be able to speak.
Hmm.
So we have to deal with those things, and that's for those of you who will be trying to save this democracy. Remember what Ben Franklin said. You got one. Now see if you can keep it. Okay? That was
Hmm.
Franklin's mouth. We finally
Hmm.
got it passed. But now you
Hmm.
got a constitution. See if you can keep it. They predicted one of these days that Trump was going to come along. And they set it up. They said if there's three separate and equal sections of government, except this Supreme Court got broke by the Koch brothers and others, big Republican billionaires, giving them free trips which no other federal judge could take, paying college for buying Clarence Thomas another house, sending his nephew to a prep school, taking long trips, buying them a big RV, all of that, and doing others. And Robert's
Hmm.
wife is making $10 million a year.
Hmm.
They're just buying votes on the Supreme Court, James,
Right. Yeah. Right.
and we got to change it.
So what is your greatest hope for us moving forward as Black people?
My greatest hope for us in Minnesota first
Hmm.
is that we elect a government that's committed to solving some of our greatest grievances. And we know what they are. They're spelled out in Clarence Hightower's booklet that you saw and I saw. And that's except that he just doesn't ask for anything. The New York Times says this, you're better off in Mississippi and Alabama than you are in Minneapolis if you're black.
Hmm.
On a national level, I hope we can save this democracy by taking control of the Senate and the Democrat who are interested in serving. And I believe in term limits too, James. I believe in term limits. Term limits, you can't go there and stay 16 years. No. 2 terms for a senator and 4 terms for a congressman.
Hmm. Well, they're all in Congress, right? There's the Senate and the House. So, but they're all in Congress. So you're saying just for Congress people, period, you said there should be what term limit would you put on it?
Yeah, but for term limits on the Senate, it's 2 terms. That's 12 years. You're
Hmm.
elected senator for 6 years.
Yes.
Two
And
terms,
then,
that's 12 years.
hmm and then House. What about the House?
For the Senate, 2 terms, that's 16 years. I mean, that's 12
Hmm.
years.
Hmm.
House, 5 terms, that's 10 years.
Okay. And,
Then
and, and you saying consecutive or 5 years period?
what I would hope is that we can get control of the Senate and the House on the national level, gain control of the Senate and the House and the governorship in Minnesota,
Hmm.
hold the local officials, the statewide officials, responsible for addressing the huge disparities ADOS people serve. And on the national level, get the Democrats get control of all 3 branches of government so we can make the changes and stop this democracy from becoming, dictatorship.
Okay. Uh, so lastly, I just want to ask you one last question. What final message would you give to Black people who are listening to you right now, particularly Black men? What would you say to us in closing?
What I hope for is that on the state level, we gain control of the House, the Senate, and the gubernatorial, and then hold those who would hold accountable for our office to address our agenda before we vote and tell us what they will support and what they won't.
Hmm.
Number two, on a national level, I hope that the Democrats can gain control of the House and the Senate, stop gerrymandering from going on, because that's a serious problem. It's been going on way too long. Pass a law against gerrymandering and deal with the Supreme Court and Citizen versus United.
Hmm.
And I don't see that as happening. Um, I mean, I can see that happening with the right candidate for president. And I don't have a favorite in that race right now. I know who's qualified to be president, but I think it'll be better off this time. Ideally, I think it would be a white woman. Ideally, um, I know they're not ready for, even though I'm a fan of Cory Booker. They're not ready for another black man. The guy from California looks good, talks good, but I just think we'd be better off with the woman president. And
And why
I
why
think
you
it's
said
time
why white woman in particular? You said ideally a white woman. Why a white woman ideally to you?
because number one, they can control a considerable amount of the power. There are among them that outnumber anyone. Number two, if they're progressive and have their heads on right, they would not have killed Roe v. Wade. They wouldn't cut uh, food stamps and Medicaid. They're just sitting not in the nature of women to do that by and large. So
Hmm.
it got to be a Democratic woman, of course, but that's what I mean. And I think they feel like they've lost their turn. They felt
And why
like
a
they
white
have.
woman? Right? Why a white woman over a black woman?
We ran a black woman,
Okay.
and I voted for her and gave her a lot of money, but she didn't win, and that wasn't her fault. Should she
Hmm.
be in the race? Yes, but I'm just thinking in the final analysis, she she if she gets in the race, she'll get my support. But my thought process is just what I think. I think a white woman could win easily. That's what I'm thinking.
Hmm.
And maybe the governor of California could win easily.
Hmm.
I don't know if Kamala could win easy,
And why do you think that?
simply because this country is not ready to have a black woman president
And why is that?
because they're racist.
Hmm.
They left white women left for the first time.
Well, white women
She,
overwhelmingly did not vote for Kamala Harris, though.
that's what I'm
Kamala
saying.
Harris. Right.
Because they resented the fact the way Bernie did it, and they
Hmm.
resented the fact that there were a black woman was getting a chance before she did. They did.
Hmm.
I mean, they
Well,
got racism in it too, man.
but Hillary ran, right? And
But
they didn't
Hillary
elect her.
ran and she lost.
Right.
She lost, and they didn't get to be president.
Right. Because so a white
Hillary
woman
ran.
did run and white women did come out, but a white woman still didn't win.
No, she didn't win, and part of that was her fault, as you know.
Hmm.
You know she didn't campaign right. She took the election for granted, and so my point simply is now, whomever used to be president doesn't matter. It's who's going to be president going forward. And right now, the country's at a point where I think it's got to elect a white woman as president. And people can
Okay.
disagree with me, but I don't see a black woman winning president. And winning, you can't. However, I would love to see it, and I would love to see a black woman president. Make no mistake about it. It's not going to happen this time around.
Okay. So
It's not practical.
thank you, Mr. English. And we are out of time, but I said that was the last question, but in closing, as we officially end this, finally, and I want to have you come back for sure because there's a lot I want to further unpack with you. Uh, could you please, as we are ending this, give us a favorite quote or a book recommendation or a song or something that has been inspiring to you in your life's work? A quote, a book, a song, something that has been inspiring to you in your life's work.
One
Incredible work.
quote, one quote that has meant a lot to me was reject bad behavior, but not the person.
Hmm.
There's another one that comes to me. Sometimes on the way to one's destiny, they come to a fork in the road. One fork looks easy and one fork looks hard. Take a look at the hard way. Look again at the hard way. Look again. It may be the best way for you to reach your destiny.
Hmm.
So in other words, don't take the easy way out.
Okay.
So those are two things. The song that inspires me the most is the Negro National Anthem.
All right. Thank you, brother. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
English. I
Thank you
appreciate
for
your
having me.
time. Yeah,
Keep
yes,
on doing your good work, brother. Keep on doing your
and
work.
we got to have you come back. We got to have you come back
Well,
for sure because you have a lot to share, and 30 or 45 minutes is it really doesn't even begin to cover your life's work and what you have accomplished. So I really I appreciate you for that. So thank you again.
you you only need to thank me. Any voice of wisdom or words I can pass on to young brothers, black men in particular, I will ask ourselves the question: every black professional man in this town needs to ask him this session: what did I think I arrived at my freedom for free? What did I do today to help free our people?
Hmm. Hmm. Thank you.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
one, James. Keep on doing
Yeah,
what you're
man.
doing.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining this episode of Yana. You are not alone. Again, thank you for joining this episode with none other than Elder Bill English. And until next time, remember that we're never meant to do life alone. See you next time. Grace and peace, everyone. Yana is here for you. This is your space to connect, grow, and be heard because none of us are meant to do life alone.